Good night. Have one time tonight. God is good and God is good all the time. My name is Summer J. Spirit Divine. I'm here to give you a word on tonight, and the topic is the Israelites Oppressed. Now, this God plan, is already in motion. So we left off yesterday that Joseph reassured his brothers that he would take care of them, and the whole family. He have 11 brothers, so he said he reassured them that I will take care of you and your whole family. So the brothers thought Joseph was going to hold a grudge against them since their father had passed away, but Joseph had give them instruction. Jacob had give the brothers instruction a letter to read to Joseph. So when they read the letter, it said for Joseph to forgive his brothers the sin that they did towards him. He know it was horrible, but forgive your brothers. But then Joseph died, and he died at an age of 110 years old. So that was yesterday news. Today package is going to come from Exodus chapter 1 through 22. So all 12 of Jacob's children went along with him to Egypt. And Jacob's family increased. So it was a total of 70, offspring with him, and Joseph was already in Egypt. So Joseph and all his brothers, all that generation that had died, so the generation they had with Joseph and all his brothers, their wives, their children, that first generation had died, but they had multiplied so greatly, but the children that came along is the offspring that's taken over for the second generation. So they multiplied greatly and increased in numbers and became so numerous that the land was filled with them. They did, God had told them to multiply. And they multiplied, So the first generation, all his brothers, they died. This is the whole second generation. So now we see that God's plan had came together. And God told Abraham and Jacob that your offspring will become a great nation. So we see how they are increasing, even since the first generation, all died. They did just as God had told them to do, is multiply. So remember, before Joseph died, he was in charge. Remember, he was in charge of Egypt. He was handling everything. It used to take him days to go around Egypt to check and see how everybody was doing, and he did a good job with the family. He was in charge, but now, to have a new king now, to whom Joseph's name mean nothing to him. Joseph's name don't mean nothing to him. That how he worrying about how he came in Egypt and become to be in charge. That's his thing. So he want to play like Joseph's name don't mean nothing to him. He the new king of Egypt. So this new king see how the Israelites have become far too numerous for them. Now he's scared now, because the Israelite is multiplying so greatly. So he thinks sooner or later they're gonna get so big, so large, they're gonna soon when they're going to war, he think they're gonna come against him because the land of Egypt is just full of with the Israelite. So the Israelite, that is over, will overpower them. So he's scared the Israelite will overpower them, because there's so many of them. Their increase is so numerous, so and leave, so they think they're gonna be in overpower them, and they think the Israelite gonna leave the country. So like they don't want them to leave the country, but they want them to continue on being a slave under them. So the king wants to deal with them to find a way to stop them from growing. Because he trying to find a way to stop them from growing because they constantly is multiplying. They constantly increasing so much on Egypt land. So he wants to try to stop them from growing. Now this new king is scared that they may leave, and become their own nation because now they covenant the whole land in Egypt. So this king put on slave master. Now he constantly coming over stuff, to stop them from growing. You know, so now he got this slave master that gonna oppress them with hard labor, you know, with breaks. You know, gonna find all kind of stuff to come up with, you know, false labor, and they have them building two pension and ransom as store cities. It's some cities. We're gonna have them to build cities for Pharaoh, you know, trying to oppress them with hard labor. So the king had them to be oppressed with hard labor, you know, had them to build cities, you know, for Pharaoh to stop them from increasing children. And the more they keep on trying to oppress them, the more they constantly kept increasing, you know. So you give them the hard labor. So at the end of the day, they don't stop them from having sex and making children. You know, so they get them hard labor, and then when they go home, they still producing um kids, and their cancer was increasing. You know, so the more they was oppressed, the more they multiplied and spread across Egypt. You know, so the more they kept on oppressing them, the more they kept on spreading. You know, so that didn't work. So the Egyptian came to drag the Israelite, worked them roughly, you know, made their lives, you know, bitter with harsh labor and bricks, you know, all kinds of work in the field, you know, everything the Egyptian um work worked on roughly did not work. They will still increase. So no matter what they come up with, you know, no matter what they constantly coming up with, they kept on increasing. They kept multiplying, you know. So this king tries to find everything to stop the Israelite from increasing, but nothing worked. Then I tried to get them hard labor, you know. They had them build cities for Pharaoh, you know, work them roughly, you know, but all did not work. The more they oppressed them, the more they multiply. You know, and that's how the devil works. When one thing don't work, when they're trying to come at you, they gonna find something else. That don't work, they're gonna find something else. You know, so now this king did all these things to the Israelites, you know, oppressed them with hard labor, and all did not work. They are God chosen people, you know. So when God is involved, you know, who can stop God? No, this is God chosen people. This is second generation. Is all the same. Still Abraham and Jacob bloodline. You know, when God is in the mix, you know, who can stop God? You know, who you think create the babies? Who you think allow the baby to live or die? You know, God. You know, when God in the mix, no one cannot stop God. They kept on finding all kind of stuff to stop the Israelites from growing. But God is involved. God deal with the children. You know, God allowed them to keep on multiplying, increasing, and there's no stop. You know, so they are God plan. You know, this is God chosen people, and this is also God plan. You know, so and there are no stopping the Israelite from growing. You know, so now this new king see all his plot, you know, did not work, you know, but made them increase more. You know, now the king have another plan. He gonna keep on coming up with plan, you know, plan after plan. But when God is in the mix, and when that is God chosen, you know, there's no stopping the Israelite, because you cannot stop God. You know, so the king said to the Hebrew midwives. Now, the Hebrew midwife is the Israelite. The Israelite is a Hebrew. So you're gonna get a Israelite midwife to try to stop the Israelite from growing, from increasing, from multiplying. You know, so the king says to the Hebrew midwife, Shepherd and Puller, you know, he telling them when they are helping the Hebrew, you know, women doing childbirth, you know, on the deliver stool. And if you see that baby, it's a boy, kill him. Now they giving them a hard decision to make, you know. But if it's a girl, let them live. Now they're giving them a hard decision to make. Remember, this king is their boss, their master, and they work under them. You know, we're gonna see if these two midwives, you know, they're leaders in a group of the midwife. That's why they picked those two right there. So you're gonna get a Hebrew woman to try to kill another Hebrew woman to kill if it's a boy. If it's a girl, let them live. Because he's trying to stop them from growing. We see that Daniel tried multiple times and it did not work because when God is in the mix, um, they kept on increasing. So this is the order the king gave to the two Hebrew midwife, to kill all boys, but let the girl live. You know, so these two Hebrew midwives, are the Israelites, God chosen people, and they fear God. Now remember, this king is their master, you know, they slave under them, you know, they are supposed to obey them, but when somebody is in power and they over you, I don't care how much someone is over you, but you feel like somebody is telling you to do something wrong, do something evil, it's a decision that you have to make. And these midwives had to make a decision. They either gonna kill these boys and please their master, or they gonna fear God and be on God's side. So that's a decision you're gonna have to make. So they fear. Now, don't get me wrong. They fear this king. This king is their master. It's over them, but they fear God more. They already knew their first generation how they was under God. That God was in the mix. God had took care of them. God was spirits all over Joseph. They didn't know about God. So they did not do what the king wanted them to do. So they did not kill all the boys because they fear God and they know God is in the mixing over the Israelites. So this is a new generation, from Jacob, Jacob bloodline, and they know they were under God. They know the first generation was under God. They know all the stories. They know how they was removed from Canaanites and moved to Egypt. They know how Joseph was interpreting dreams. And they know God gave Joseph a promotion. They know God was involved in everything the first generation was doing. So these are the two midwives to Hebrew. They let all boys live, and they knowing this was the will of God. When they saw how every time you look around, they kept on being pregnant and being at the liver table, and these babies were just coming. Fast as they were delivering, the baby was coming. So they knew this is the will of God. They know this was God doing. So now the king see that the Israelites were exceedingly increased and there were more male than ever on the land. So when the king had said kill all boys, the two midwives said, no, I'm going to let these boys live. So the king of Egypt summoned the midwives, and asked them why you let all the male live when I told you to kill all the boys. So the two midwives had said the Hebrew women are not like the Egyptian women. They are strong in God, and give birth. And they was giving birth before the midwife arrived. So they already know they were increasing before they had some of these two midwives to get involved. They already was increasing and multiplying before they came involved, because that's what they're saying. So these midwives, they knew eventually, the king will realize that they let all boys live. But they know also that God was in the mix. God who create babies, let them live or let them die. All that decision come from God. So they knew they could not stop God. The midwives saw God in the mix. The one who create babies, the one who decide they should live or they should die. So they noticed the work of God while they was in that delivery room. The work of God was in the mix. Because the faster they were delivering, the faster they kept coming in there, delivering these babies. And these boys kept on being developed. So that's why they said the Hebrew women were different from the Egyptian women, because the Hebrew women had God on their side. God was the one multiplying all these babies. So God is with the Hebrew women, which is the Israelite. So God was kind to the midwife, and the people increased and became even more numerous. They increased so much. God noticed the good deed these two midwives did in helping the Hebrew women, because the midwife fear God. And that's the main thing, that we have to fear God than anyone else. I don't care how powerful someone is. I don't care what your situation is. I don't care how powerful someone is and tell you to do this and do that. You have to make a decision to do right or do wrong. That was a decision they had to make. They don't have no family of their own. So they could never kill a child when they never had a child on their own. So God knows the good deed these two midwives did in helping the Hebrew women, because the midwife feared God and he gave them family of their own. See, they had no family. And see, whatever you do, good or bad, God is always watching. He saw, he noticed the two midwives. He noticed that the king wanted them to kill the babies. But he said they ain't never killed the babies. They let all these boys live because they fear God. They fear God. They know the first generation, was under God. So they fear God, and they did not kill none of the babies. And God see the good deed that they didn't know if they were gonna get blessed. They ain't want expecting no money, no blessing, no nothing. They decide to make the right decision. And that's what we have to do, no matter who is powerful over you. If you feel like they're telling you to do something wrong, it's time for you to turn your head to the wall and start praying so you can make the right decision to do wrong or do right in God's eyesight. So God was, so when you do good deed, not knowing if you will receive anything, but doing the right thing, God noticed. So when you fear him, he will step in on your behalf, because we see the king did not kill the two midwives. They were saved. Because see, God was going to protect them, because God saw how they were saving all these Hebrew babies. They allowed all these boys, to live. They saved a lot of lives. To allow all these babies, male babies, to live and did not kill none of them. And so God was kind to them, and give them their own family. They didn't have no families. And now God blessed them with their own family. And I think that's why they couldn't kill no babies. They got blessed by God. They were able to experience, the wonderful things to have a baby of their own. So they had delivered so many babies. They had saved so many lives. Pharaoh did not touch them, but placed another order to kill babies. Now he know God is in the mix, with the midwife, with the Israelite, so that didn't work. So now they're about to place another order. So every Hebrew boy that is born, you must throw into the Nile River, but let every girl live. Now he started trying to kill these boys. Now, the midwife didn't kill him. So now he telling his servant, throw him in the river. So that did not stop Pharaoh. He still wanted all boys to be killed. Even though, their king and power, always remember God have power over the devil. No matter how powerful the devil is, no matter what situation you're in, no matter who is over you, who is in power, telling you to do this and do that, but you got to make the right decision. If just the right thing to do. If not, you got to pray to make the right decision. So these two midwives, they know their king is in power over them. That's their boss. But they still fear God. They know that the consequences they was gonna have to pay crossing their master. They know the consequences, but also they fear God, and they did what was right in God's eyesight. So they know the consequences they had to face. Their king, sooner or later, they know sooner or later the king was gonna summon them to the office. But the whole key is, no matter how powerful someone is, you know, if it's not right, you got to trust and you got to fear God for guidance. God, to do the right thing in God's eyesight. No matter how powerful, they know how powerful their king was. There were consequences they had to face. So fearing God. So we see the Egyptian, leader fearful of the growing strength of God's people. You know, he feared the Israelite because they was growing so rapidly. And he wanted to do something to stop them from growing. Because see, we always think, that these people is powerful over us. But deep down inside, they were fearful of the Israelite. And that's the reason why he was so busy trying to stop them from growing. Because he thought they were going to leave town. He thought when war break out, they were going to attack them. He had all kind of things going across his mind. And when you always think you're fearful of someone that's in power, remember, someone in power sometimes is fearful of you. Because they was fearful of the Israelite. And that's why they kept on doing everything they can to stop them from growing. But long as God is in the mix, there was no stopping the Israelite from multiplying. So we see the Egyptian leader fearful of the growing strength of God's people, attempting to perceive threat against the national security. The Israelite would increase greatly, covering the whole land of Egypt. But the king placed an order to kill their male babies at birth. And wanted the two midwives to kill all the boys, babies, but the two midwives resisted because they feared God. So the midwives were childless, women who were available, to help other women, deliver. They don't have children of their own, so they were so happy to help in a delivery room. They had no children of their own. So when he told them, go in the delivery room and help them with their babies, but if it's a boy, kill it. It was a blessing for them two to be in the delivery room because they didn't have no children. For them to not have children and see this baby coming out, one of them said they saw the head coming out, they were just full of joy. They could not kill those babies. When they see their eyes, they see their nose, they see a beautiful thing that's coming out and they don't have no children, they let all them boys live. This saves so many lives. The two midwives, this says time for all the boys to live. Deliver, stool. Means they had two stones. As women had given birth, they sat on the two stones and they were delivering this baby. And shipwreck and pull was on one end, on the other end, and allowing all them babies to come out. The faster, they was delivering them babies so fast. The faster they was delivering, the faster they was kept growing. And then eventually, the king was gonna realize that they're not killing none of the boys. It just kept on increasing. The land just kept filling up with the Israelites. So as sooner or later, they know the king was gonna summon them to the office. So shipwreck and Pull are probably leaders of a group of the midwives. That's why the king called those two. Now these two midwives, they fear God. Not their king. They protect all the boys' babies, from death. They had saved so many lives. So God blesses, their courage and faith by giving them the greatest honor a woman can experience of their own family. So they had courage, they had faith, they had courage and faith because they went against their king. They went against their master. They know how cruel their king are. Anytime he wants to kill babies. So imagine, what they'll do to them. But that didn't matter. These midwives had feared God instead of their king. They ain't thought about it at all. Okay, we're gonna let these babies live. Regardless of what our master say. You know, we gonna fear God and we gonna let these babies live. Because they already knew. This is second generation. They knew how the first generation was. They was under God. So they fear God and not their king, not their master. And that's what you have to do in life. When you come to a decision that you have to make, no matter who is in charge, no matter who is in power, if someone telling you to do something cruel, something evil and wicked, and you know it's not right, it's a decision you have to make. If I'm going to do wrong for a master that's a power over us, I'm going to do right in God's eyesight. So that's a decision we have to make. If we're going to fear God or we're going to fear our master. Who can save you at the end of the day? Your master or God? God is the only one that can save us from anything. Because God is a mighty God with power. So these midwives fear God and they made the best decision. Because at the end of the day, they were blessed by God. God gave them a family they own. That's why when Pharaoh had wanted them to be in that delivery room, that was a blessing to them. They were so happy and so honored to help them deliver these babies because they didn't have no babies. And they were seeing all these beautiful babies coming out. So they said they were seeing the head come out, their eyes. It was a blessing for them to see all this shit at the delivery room. They could not kill those babies. So just always the decision in life. You have to make the right choice. So the Israelites was oppressed by this new king. But he wanted to stop them from growing because the Israelite was growing so rapidly. And he got afraid that they was going to go into war and they was going to turn against them, and leave the country. Because see, the Israelites, remember they was enslaved. Remember in the famine, they had lost all, they had no more money. So then they turned their own self in to be slave under Pharaoh, not knowing the consequences that they were going to have to pay to be under Pharaoh. They thought everything was going to be good because Joseph was in charge, and thinking they were going to have favor with Pharaoh. But that did not work out because Joseph died and they had another king came and took his place. It was so worse, because they was growing so rapidly. And he didn't want to honor Joseph. He didn't want to honor Joseph, and so he didn't care nothing about Joseph. He didn't care nothing about Joseph God. He was so mad and upset because how he came in position and it had a qualification. See, when you're dealing with God, you don't need a qualification. God's spirit be all over you and you could do the job that anybody else can do. And that was the problem. How he came in Egypt, he just got in charge. Because the promotion that came from God. And Joseph had did an excellent job, being in charge. So that's the story on the Israelite oppressed. And they're going to be crying out to God sooner or later. They're going to be crying out to God. Remember, God said, I'm going to come and rescue you. God also going to help them conquer that promised land that he promised to them with milk and honey. So we're going to keep on going through these stories. And we're going to also see how the Israelites going to conquer their promised land. So that's all the word I have for you on tonight. See y'all on the next video.